So the law is so simple, you overlook it. It's like, Abraham, I'm not in a relationship and I want to be in a relationship. How do I get into a relationship? And really, the simple answer is the same way you've created not being in a relationship. Abraham, I don't have enough money and I want to have more money. I don't have enough clients and I want to have more clients. How do you do it? Well, the same way you've created. You're never not creating. And right now, what you've created is a business with not enough clients. So if this is why it's all about understanding. If what you get taught and what you listen for is what are the things I need to do so that I can go from not enough clients to more clients, what you miss is how you are a creator. Once you realize you're a creator, you stop asking questions about how do I create. Once you realize you're a creator and that you're always creating, there is no longer a question about how do I create. You create the way you're creating right now. You create the way you're creating your life experience right now. It's not like it's different. It's the way you do it now. You will do it for anything you want. It's the same.
Welcome to the Delicious Alignment Podcast, high-vibing conversations with me, your host, Rhonda Ryder. You know, I really am enjoying my summer of fun, also known as my summer of saying yes. What that means for me right now is meeting up with friends for lunches and dinners and shows and hikes, working less, playing more, spending more time with my husband, my dad, and my daughter. I also have a desire to get in the water, go kayaking and swimming. This may sound like no big deal, but for a former quasi-workaholic, this is a big deal. And I'm really enjoying this newfound freedom of play and fun. I used to view fun as unproductive, and now I see just how productive it is. It is the key, because when you're having fun, you are in the present moment, and that's where all your power is. There's no resistance in the present moment, so it's such a cool way to allow what you want to flow into your life with more ease. On July 13th, my interview with Reed Thompson for my Beyond the Hot Seat series will drop. He's a multiple hot seater who enjoyed a whole year of saying yes. He calls it the 12-month experiment of fun. You are going to love that episode, as well as today's interview with the amazing Dominic Scaffidi. Today's episode is sponsored by transformation coach Amanda Town and aniceworld.com, beautiful law of attraction jewelry created by Jill Hofer. More about these talented ladies in a bit. Interested in becoming a sponsor for future episodes? Feel free to contact us for more details. If you've been hanging around the law of attraction community for a while, you have no doubt heard of Dominic Scaffidi and his Facebook group, Ask and It Is Given, How Thoughts Become Things. I'm so excited to bring my interview with Dominic to you today as part of my Beyond the Hot Seat summer series. Dominic has been in the Abraham Hicks Hot Seat many, many times, so much that he has actually lost count. By the way, even if you're not familiar with Abraham Hicks, I know you will get so much out of this episode. Some of the topics we discuss are, and are not limited to, how creating your reality is not something you learn to do because you are already doing it. Also, it's in realizing your true nature that you naturally become a more conscious creator. And some more specific questions like, if it's already done, where is it? And how do I get it? Dominic is grounded in a practical and deep understanding of the teachings of Sydney Banks and the teachings of Abraham Hicks, which describe our true nature and how we are always creating our own reality. He works with entrepreneurs, leaders, and anyone with a strong desire to explore and experience more of who they really are. Dominic has been recognized with multiple International Coaching Federation awards for his training and mentoring of hundreds of leaders and managers. So excited to share this interview with you. Let's go. Hello, Dominic.
Hi, how are you, Rhonda?
I'm
Great.
great, thank you.
Yeah,
Really excited to speak with you today, like 12-ish time hot seater, and just knowing what you're all about and all the work that you do, your coaching, your online programs. Really excited to talk to you.
great. Well, I was thrilled to get this invite, and it gave me an opportunity to sort of reflect on my hot seat experience. And I know that this conversation will kind of get even more of that reflection. So it's always valuable.
Right. You have also submitted questions to Abraham Live. Tell me anything you'd like to tell me.
Yeah. Well, I mean, what a wonderful opportunity for anybody, right? Like when you think about this wonderful opportunity we have to be able to ask a question, any question. It's almost like, you get to ask a question of infinite intelligence. And
Mm-hmm.
now the truth is, you could just do that on your own. And it is something that you can do on your own. You can just kind of get quiet and ask the question. I do it a lot with journaling, where I will journal it. There's something though about the fact that Esther is, there, and then a a conversation can start, which is different. That's different than when you do this on your own, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I love that. It's just an incredible feeling, and yeah.
Yeah, and I have been actually in the coaching that I'm doing, getting to speak with people's inner being at the end. I ask if their inner being would like to have a conversation with me. So you're right. We all have that within us. We can all access that, our own inner being, our own infinite intelligence. So, what are some of your highlights from some of your experiences in the hot
Well,
seat?
I think what I noticed was, over the years, the first time, so it's been, my first workshop, live workshop, was in Atlanta. I'm from Toronto, but I was traveling on business. And, when I looked at the calendar, and coincidentally, there's going to
Mm-hmm.
be an Abraham. So I had been following Abraham for a little while. So this was in 2014. And that was the first workshop I attended live. So I had a familiarity with them. And there's a distinction between my first workshop, my second workshop, which was the following year in Asheville. And then, and both
Asheville,
times,
shout out. I live in Asheville.
oh, yeah, what a beautiful
Yeah,
place. That was
yeah.
that was really great. So those in 2015, 2014, and 15, those two workshops, and my engagement and questions there. And then there's a distinction to the third. And then the third, which happened in 2016, something different starts to happen from there on with all my questions. The thing in the first two was that my questions, I would say, may have been more practically oriented. Like, in other words, I'm asking questions that are more related to with my business and what to do and all of that. Post that, in 2016 on, my questions may use the practical to inform a curiosity about a curiosity about universal laws. And we're really moving toward a deeper understanding of universal laws. And the big thing that triggered that for me was that in 2015-16, I had come across another teaching, and that was the teachings of Sydney Banks, and called the Three Principles. And when I came across that teaching, it clarified for me what Abraham really is. Because up until that time, I was getting, it was more like an understanding of Abraham that people might have, if they have watched The Secret, for example, although Abraham's not on there, it's a thing, that a 90-minute DVD about law of attraction and all that. And so my understanding of Abraham was more of, oh, this is kind of cool. I think we can create things with our mind, and we just kind of, close our eyes and wish for things, and then the universe brings them to you. And maybe you might need a vision board or doing some affirmations or something, but there's some
Mm-hmm.
way of tricking the universe or controlling the universe
Mm-hmm.
such that you can manipulate and get what you want. And then after coming across the teachings of Sydney Banks, which is a very rigorous teaching. It's unlike Abraham, which is kind of free flowing, responsive to questions. It's like very that. Sid Banks and this three principles is a very rigorous teaching about who you really are, your true nature, and the nature of reality. And when I came out with that, it struck me instantly as pure truth. And then I had a bit of a dilemma, because the pure truth that I could hear in the simplicity of Sid Banks was contrasted around a far more expansive teaching that Abraham does in a very different style.
Mm-hmm.
And I was running across conflicts in my mind. I'm like, wait a minute, but Abraham offers practices. Abraham has things that they recommend doing. And what I discovered, having seen, a deeper teaching, is practices are not required. There's nothing you need to do. There is nothing you need to do to be who you really are.
Mm-hmm.
You are who you really are. You are never not who you really are. So this was quite a conflict for me, because I'm like, but wait a minute, but I've been following these teachings. And so it began then in 2016, my question became really different. They became, hey, Abraham, you say we can control thought. At least that's the way I hear it, is you say we can control thought. Is that actually true? Because from a deeper understanding, I could see, I don't think that's true. I don't think that's true that we can do that. And slowly, one by one, every time I felt a conflict, it was from a misunderstanding of the teachings of Abraham. It was a misunderstanding of what they were saying. And it's fascinating, because I was using this misunderstanding, and I was kind of like working along with a misunderstanding, and kind of even works to whatever degree that it works.
Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't always work. If it's a universal law, it always works. It never does not work. So if there's ever an inconsistency, you have a misunderstanding. And it's in that misunderstanding. Otherwise, it would always work. And so that's sort of a difference between my first two conversations, and then everything after that went into a deeper exploration of the
Yeah.
truth of what they're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah. It is how it goes, isn't it? You start out asking, well, how can I get this thing? How can I get the relationship? How can I make more money? And
Yeah.
then it goes
Yeah.
into broader questions about universal laws. So there were some contradictions you felt in the beginning that you were trying to resolve.
All contradictions were my misunderstanding of what
Right.
Abraham taught. What was really funny was, after hearing something, like after really seeing the truth that no practices are required, there's nothing
Yeah.
you have to do. That one was really stumped me, because Abraham, in the back of Asking It Is Given, there are 22 processes.
Yes.
And the dilemma for me was, how could this be? Because now it was like a deep insight and realization in teachings of Sydney Banks in Three Principles, a deep, clear realization that no practice is ever required, right? And then I'm like, well, but Abraham is infinite intelligence. That is a pure source energy consciousness. How could they say this when this is true? And so that was the beginning of,
So what's the
um,
answer? Why
well,
are there practices in the book?
first we'd have to understand, what does Abraham believe about practices? Not what do they believe, what do they teach about practices? And what does Abraham teach about practices? Every single practice that they teach, including the one practice they teach above all others, which is the practice of meditation. What does Abraham say about every single practice? They actually say it is unnecessary.
Mm,
They actually say it is unnecessary.
mm,
But I never heard it. I
mm.
could never hear that. So from from a level of consciousness, you can only hear what you can hear. So
Mhm.
I could not hear that, right? And what was really, it was like I was laughing, because after I would listen to a recording, including my own recordings, like including them talking to me, and I'd listen and I'd suddenly catch something about, this thing you could do, or that practice. I remembered hearing them once around talking about um, a focus wheel and doing a focus wheel and all that, right? Like a practice. And then they'd suddenly go, but you don't need to do a focus wheel. I never heard that.
Mhm.
I never heard them describe and tell someone about the process of it, and then say, but you don't need to do that. That's not necessary. And they would often, so repeatedly, talk about every process and then say how it's not necessary. Or they'd say, well, that's kind of complicated. You could have also just pet your cat. You
Mhm.
would have achieved the same outcome had you pet your cat. Right? So they give you this process, and then they say, or you could pet your cat, would be the
Yeah.
same outcome. So
Yeah.
this had, by the way, the more I looked in, like, read their books, go to older recordings, it's like they've always been saying this. It's all the same thing. And it's the greatest misunderstanding. People will ask Abraham, how do I raise my vibration? And there is no way for you to raise your vibration. There's nothing you can do to raise your vibration. Everything you do as a human being, every action you take will only interfere with your true nature. Everything you do, every bit of focus you take is an interference from the purity of that source consciousness. And so it takes you down in vibration. And then what should you do? They always say this. I never heard it. How do I raise my vibration? By not doing that thing you do that lowers it.
Mm.
That's their answer. By not doing the thing you do that lowers it. That's what you should do. Basically, what they say is, it's non-doing. To
Mm.
be who you are is not a doing. Right? It is a non-doing. and but Abraham, tell me how I cannot do the thing. They're ridiculous questions, right? But they'll come from whatever level of consciousness you're asking the question from. And what I love about Abraham is they'll answer you and you will hear their answer at the level of consciousness from which you ask the
Mhm.
question.
Mhm.
And so that's all you can hear, right? And as your level of consciousness goes deeper, what you hear is a deeply spiritual teaching, a teaching of the law of the universe, what is reality. It is a deeply spiritual teaching. And most of us, as we get there, are like, yeah. But what about, I'm not in a relationship and I want to be one? Can we talk about that instead? Right? Can we talk about this? Can we talk about that? And it's kind of interesting, because it's like, wow, if you knew what was available here, you knew what was available here, if you really could see what was available, your
Mhm.
questions would be, I think, appropriate to what's actually here. You would get answers to how the universe works, to how reality works, to who you really are in your true nature. And you don't need them to tell you how to lose
Mhm.
weight, and how to go, go make more money, get more clients, or all that. You don't need them to tell you that. Yeah, that you could figure out if you understood, reality in a deeper place. And so, yeah, that's kind of where my question.
Okay, well, I think we're done here. That was like, whoosh, mind blown. Yeah, it's so interesting how we get tangled and tangled up in the doing. No matter how much you progress along your spiritual path, and you're like, oh, there's something I need to do to fix this. Like
Yes.
someone I know in my life is having a health challenge, and I forget and I get caught up in, well, what is the thing we need to do to fix this? What is the thing we need to do that's going to fix this? The answer. And it's really all about going within. This is my universe, even though this isn't my body I'm talking about, it's somebody else's body. It's still
Yeah.
my my universe that I'm creating. So for me to go within, there's nothing I need to do. It's like, really? Is
Yeah.
how could
Yeah.
that be true?
And it's, in a way, it's kind of obvious, because what it is it's a matter of where you're focused, what you're giving attention to. Picture there is a forest of beautiful trees, and there are different colors and all of that. Okay, but how do I experience the maple tree? What is it I need to do? Well, I don't know. It's all here. There's a forest in front of you. You're seeing all of it. Just focus on the maple tree. I mean, just focus on the maple tree. You'll experience it. Well, like, that's it. There's not a doing. It's a consciousness. You're looking, and you're looking at this, and then look at that. If you look at this, you'll experience this. If you look at that, you'll experience that. I know, but the problem is that what I'm actually experiencing is an oak. And yeah, but I don't want an oak. And well, no, what I want in my life is the maple tree. I want to have an experience of a maple tree. Well, it works the same way. You are always creating your own reality, right? I know I don't have enough money. How do I get enough money? The same way. You
So
you
you're
don't
saying
think that.
focus on the maple tree. Is that what you're
Well, it
saying?
would be that simple, right? But it like but I have an experience of an oak tree, and I don't want that. I want the experience of the maple tree. It's like, how do I do that?
So how do
Just,
you do that? So you turn your
well,
attention is
exactly the same
to
way you are experiencing an oak tree. Exactly the same way you experience
put
an
your
oak tree is
attention
how,
on a maple tree.
if
Yes?
that's what you want.
If that's what you want. Yeah.
If that's what you want. And here's the funny thing about it. Oh, and by the way, in all this conversation about how you don't want an oak tree and what's wrong with the oak tree, and the fact that you've been experiencing the oak tree all your life and you've never not experienced anything but the oak tree, what do you think this is a focus on?
What you don't want.
And it's a focus on this thing. Right?
Yeah.
So it's like, so the law is so simple, you overlook it. It's like, Abraham, I'm not in a relationship and I want to be in a relationship. How do I get into a relationship? And really, the simple answer is the same way you've created not being in a relationship. Abraham, I don't have enough money and I want to have more money. I don't have enough clients and I want to have more clients. How do you do it? Well, the same way you've created. You're never not creating. And right now, what you've created is a business with not enough clients. So if this is why it's all about understanding. If what you get taught and what you listen for is, what are the things I need to do so that I can go from not enough clients to more clients, what you miss is how you are a creator. Once you realize you're a creator, you stop asking questions about how do I create. Once you realize you're a creator and that you're always creating. There is no longer a question about how do I create. You create the way you're creating right now. You create the way you're creating your life experience right now. It's not like it's different. It's the way you do it now. You will do it for anything you want. It's the same.
You focus on what you want.
Well, now you're going to a doing. You don't need to tell a creator how to create. You can, and I don't need to tell you how to create. All you need to do is to realize how it is that you are creating. That's the reason, right? It's like, I can't tell you what to do. A little bit what this is like is that even things like alignment, how do I get in alignment? How do I be in high vibration? That is like someone asking you, a cyclist, and asking you the question, how do I be in balance? Imagine you get asked that question, how do I do it? What should I do? Every word out of your mouth to them is not helpful.
Mm-hmm.
Every word is not helpful.
Mm-hmm.
There is nothing you can tell them
So
to
are
do.
you saying that because it's unique to each individual
Well,
that...
let's do balance.
Okay.
How would you ever get into balance?
Explain it.
Can't explain it. You can only feel it. You can
Experience
only
it.
know it
Yeah,
for
feel it.
yourself. And once you distinguish it, once you distinguish what it is to be in alignment, once you distinguish what it means to be the creator that you are, you can feel your way into it. You can't think your way there. You can feel your way to it. There's not, and now when you look at a cyclist on a bike, there is so much they are doing to maintain balance. There's a lot they are doing to stay in balance, except it's really an effortless doing. It is not their doing. It is the distinction that moves them. The distinction of balance is what's moving them. All they're bringing is the conscious intention and realization, and it moves them. It moves them. If they went out with a plan for how to achieve balance, it would fail because the plan can't ever do it, right? You have wisdom in every moment.
I've received such wonderful feedback about my episode Freedom from Overthinking with transformation coach Amanda Town. In fact, this episode was so popular, I invited Amanda back for my Beyond the Hot Seat series. In the meanwhile, if you'd like more of Amanda, I've got great news. She has 2 gifts for you. One is a free coaching session. Simply go to her website, amandatown.com. That's town with an E on the end. Click on Book Now and use the coupon code FREEDOM. Amanda is an expert at helping you release resistance and connect with your inner guidance by energetically guiding you to let go of old patterns that may have been holding you back for years. A coaching session with Amanda is truly a transformational experience. I can personally attest to that, and I would definitely take her up on her offer. The second gift from Amanda is her free ebook, How to Tame Your Overthinking Mind, also found on her website, amandatown.com. This is a beautiful little book that tells Amanda's story in more detail and gives you wonderful insights on how you can transform your overthinking mind to a more peaceful and happy one. Amanda's offer and link is also in the show notes. You may have noticed the joy necklace I wear all the time in my episodes. It's very special to me because my dear friend Jill Hofer from aniceworld.com designed this necklace that's in the shape of a key and has the word joy carved out in it. The bottom part of the key also has an AH cleverly hidden in the piece. This necklace is a reminder to me every day that joy is indeed the key to everything. AndNiceWorld.com offers meaningful jewelry such as boomerang charms, infinity symbols, and star designs. nice jewelry, especially the law of attraction boomerangs, are shining, steady reminders that everything we send out to the universe is coming right back to us. Right now, you can receive 11.11% off your order when using the coupon code DELICIOUSLOA and subscribing to Jill's Nice News newsletter found at aniceworld.com. And when you do, she is also including a surprise bonus gift with your order that you are going to absolutely love. ANiceWorld.com donates 33 to 100% of every purchase to making the world a nicer place, and an Abraham Hicks Sarah book to a children's library with every purchase of a Joy Key or Castle button. So what are you coaching on? Well, I mean, let's face it, there's so many coaches out there teaching how to raise your vibrations, myself included, coaching people, helping people, taking them through practices to help people raise their vibration. There is something I feel in that. And of course, what I'm saying is all the answers are within you. So here are some practices. Well, those 22 practices really are guiding you to look within, tap into your own inner being, into your own inner guidance, where all the answers are.
Yeah. When the practices are seen as providing an experience that teaches me something deeper, they're very useful. In other words, taking a practice to experience something that takes me into a deeper understanding, the practice is useful. It is similar to a tool like training wheels on a bicycle. So to the extent that the training wheels on a bicycle give me a sense of an experience, that experience will teach me balance. There's an experience that will teach me balance. And the thing is, upon the realization of that truth, then the training wheels, not only are they not required, they were never required.
Mm-hmm.
So this is the thing, is like, they were not ever required.
Yeah.
Many people distinguish balance without the use of training wheels, right? And that's why when we get insistent on, here's what you need to do for anything. Here's what you need to do if you really want to create what you want. Here's what you need to do if you really want to create a thriving business. Here's what you need to do if you want to be in a relationship. Anytime we get into anything like that, it is from a deeper understanding. It is the moment it's out of your mouth, it's a lie. The moment it's out of your mouth, it is a lie, entirely a lie. It is absolutely an untruth. It is a complete misunderstanding.
It's so true.
What's really funny is it may have been somewhat true for you, right? Maybe for you, somewhat true, right? In how you built a business or how you did something. But for sure, it's not true for that other point of consciousness over there, who has their own inner being, which we have no idea their purpose and what they are here and what they're here to do. And we don't know anything about that life experience or any of that stuff. So, the moment of even interfering with a what should I do kind of question is just a slowing down, and really it's ineffective coaching. But that's just me being a pure coach.
You've just obliterated my whole marketing career.
Well,
it's like 10 steps. Here's 5 steps on how to achieve the copywriting. Dude, follow this plan, and you too can. Yeah.
Yes. Well, and there are people. This is what the difference is with Abraham compared to Sydney Banks. Sydney Banks, the teachings, those 3 principles, the whole kind of community around that. Oh gosh, there were moments it was so annoying to me because the rigor is so strong in the sticking to the pure laws and truth, right? That there's no wiggle room There's no like, can I get a break here for a minute? Like, just give me something to go on, right?
Yeah.
And so this is why, and meanwhile, Abraham, which is a teaching that just speaks to the question. If you ask a question, infinite intelligence will answer, and they answer it's precisely at the level at which the question is being asked, and many other levels. This other thing
And
I
many
know.
other levels because there's other people in the room.
Yes.
So they are,
Yes.
right.
Yes.
It's multi-layered.
It's
Yeah.
multi-layered. So
Yeah.
the question being asked is responded to, but it's responded to from an infinite intelligence in a consistent, pure truth. It is heard at the level the question is asked. However, for us audience members, when we're sitting there, we hear that response at our own level of
Mm.
consciousness. So when we listen from a different place, and this is why for me, I just love the fact that there's no, what is it? The teachings, what I love about Abraham is there's no difference between practical and sort of grounded spiritual truth. No difference between spiritual and manifested. No difference. Their response is one consistent response from pure truth, and you listen how you will. So if all you're listening for is how do I do this, this, or this, what you pick up is how do I do this, this, or this. Or listening.
That's just like amazing. When you
Yeah.
listen to something one time and then you go back and listen to it again, you're at a different place,
Yes.
you hear something new.
Because as your own level of consciousness changes, you get deeper understanding into different things. And all of a sudden you go back to this from a year ago. And for me, I go back to some of these original answers to my questions. And I remember the guy asking the question. Like I remember where I came from in asking the question. And I remember what I heard them say to me. But when I go back to that conversation 2014, and then I hear the answer, I'm like, oh, wow, they said a lot, actually. There was a lot that they actually
Yeah.
said.
Yeah.
And I didn't hear that, right? So the answer is always from pure source energy consciousness, and you can listen for years. And your own
Yes.
understanding will deepen, but you'll listen for years to that, and you will hear it more and more and more and more because it came from infinite.
Yeah, absolutely. So when is the last time you asked Abraham a question?
I was in the hot seat at the Caribbean cruise, which was in March. And that was the first time I was in the hot seat twice. So I had been in one of the sessions, and then in another session, I was in again. And now, given this conversation that we just had, you're going to laugh. Okay.
Okay.
You're
I'm
going to laugh.
laughing already, but okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because this is how funny this is.
Yeah.
So I do my same thing. I'm in the hot seat the first time there, and I'm asking this question about this distinction between creation and discovery. And anyway, it's a real sort of me being my geeky self is like really wanting to understand this, how this law is, and is it really creation we're doing, or is it really actually discovering what's already there? Anyway, there's this whole thing, right? So that's the first conversation. The second conversation was the first time in, I don't know, the years, probably since 2019, that I asked a practical question.
Oh, okay.
So given this conversation now, right, which is like, Abraham, I'm wanting to write a book. I didn't want to write a book. And then suddenly the idea of writing a book came up. And it basically was practical question. Like, so
What
I
do I
notice
do?
I notice I have the desire. I notice the desire is clear. I notice I'm sure that this will happen. I just don't notice a lot of action, Abraham. I just don't see a lot of stuff happening, right? And so that was the first time in years that I had asked a question, because I was kind of curious about that. Like, so what's
Uh-huh.
up with that? What's going on? Yeah.
And
So they
they
offered, see, so they are great, right? So they offered some tips. The tips are good when I can do them. Like they talked that there was some tips, some things that they said, which help. But what I really got, because I still listen from my geeky self. I still
mm-hmm.
listen for what's the
Mm-hmm.
truth in what they're saying. What's
Oh,
the
okay.
what like they're trying to satisfy some of that question, but they're answering in a pure truth.
Mm.
Um, and there's something about the state I'm in of knowing I'll write a book and actually just being satisfied with the fact of knowing that that creation is done. The creation is complete.
Mm-hmm.
The only part of that is like, where the hell is it?
Right.
Because it's not on my shelf. Right? It's not completed. However, but there truly is this literal satisfaction or contentment because there was a time in my
Mm-hmm.
life I had no interest in it, right? No interest in writing a book. I don't want to do that. Who wants to? And then to this, wow, I'm going to write a book, and it was a sure knowing of it. There's something around that the timing happens in perfect timing,
Mm-hmm.
and that the inspiration or movement into the writing also happens perfectly. And
Mm-hmm.
it is not a thing that the creation is complete. You must allow the creation. And the one thing that I notice me doing is almost every bit of attention I give it is an interference. It's like, I think my problem is, notice, look at the way this,
You're looking at the oak tree when you
right.
want a maple
Yeah.
tree. Yeah.
Yeah. I think my problem is I don't have an outline. I think that would help. I think
Yeah.
so I'm really like looking at why isn't this happening? Why isn't this happening? Why isn't this happening? How come I'm not writing? How come I'm not writing? And of course, in that vibration and in that state is like nothing but whatever answers, whatever ideas I would have, they're not going to work. And it's
Yeah.
really interesting because I've tried to solve the problem from that level of consciousness. And
Yeah.
Einstein says you cannot solve a problem at the same level of consciousness, which you're creating the problem. So I've literally taken action, spent time, invested money, all at, I'm not going to say with no result, because it's all useful. Like it is all useful. It's all valuable. There is a learning in it. Even the fact, there was writing and different things that happened. But the thing is, it came out of a reaction to a resistance. It did not come out of pure creation.
Mm-hmm.
It
So
came out of
I
solving a problem.
so funny. I've got to tell you real quick my book writing story. I just finished a
Oh,
book,
oh,
another book for somebody else.
yeah.
Ghost writing a book. I turned it in on Friday. 12 of the 16 chapters, and this just demonstrates exactly what you're saying. So there was a lot of resistance at first. It's like a year ago that I got this contract. And it's like, why? How come I'm not writing? How come I'm not doing this? How come I'm procrastinating? And I kept, like, every time I wrote, it was from resistance. And then the client says, you know what? Let's put this on hold. It's a good thing I didn't put a lot into it, because she needed to put it on hold and figure some things out about the direction of the book. And then she came back a few months later and said, instead of this being a self-help spiritual book, I really want it to be a memoir. I've gotten a lot
Mm.
of clarity. I want it to be a memoir. And then at first, my writer's brain was like, oh no, what I've done might go to waste. But then it's like, I went to school for creative writing. I got a
Oh, wow.
degree in and I never did creative writing except like in advertising. Like I didn't do the fiction writing, right, that I wanted
Wow.
to. And so to me, this is like fiction writing, because you're telling a story, and you can
Mm.
look up words in the thesaurus and just change it all, and tell a story like a fiction book. So then finally, I just lined up with it and it just flowed out of
Mhm.
me.
Wow.
Like I wrote like in May, like 3, 4 hours a day. That's it. And it just flowed. It was the most satisfying writing experience I have ever had, like in writing for somebody else.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah. And it just completely flowed. And she texted me that she's so ecstatic about what she read and everything. So just demonstrating what you're
Awesome.
saying, that
Yeah.
I was doesn't Abraham talk about procrastinating is just like your way of being in alignment with divine timing and waiting for that
Yeah.
perfect timing to write it.
What a
Or
great story.
yes.
That's a great story. It
Yeah.
really, like, see, that story really shows that how fast the creation how fast the creation comes when you're not in the way, right? The minute you're in
Mhm.
the flow of it, there, and for you to write for 3, 4 hours a day, there is very little resistance, because if there's resistance, you can't handle that length of time. Like, you couldn't sit there for that length of time. Like, if you're trying to write a story, right? Like, or trying to write it. So you have zero resistance, almost no resistance, and it's like in that flow it just comes, and it's precise and it's exact, and it's
Mm.
a like a powerful creation.
Yeah, and if I did start to feel a little antsy and like I just was like, okay, I'm done. I'm not going to force
Yes,
it. I
yes.
only when it feels good and the energy feels good.
You went, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
See, that's the other thing, is your sensitivity. This is like, see, a lot of this stuff, like, now that you're like, because if we've been listening to Abraham for a while and we experience, a lot of it just becomes intuitive, right? So
Mhm.
when you look at what that is your level of sensitivity. It's like the guy riding the bike on balance. So your level of sensitivity is, you understood flow. And then you said, and then if I got a little antsy, see, you don't need to ask, well, but then what should I do? What is, like, you got a little antsy. I'm not doing that. I stand up and I'm walking, right? I'm going
Right.
for a walk. But it's sort of like, because it's just obvious to you that you are not going to keep writing from this sort of antsy state.
And
And
that's
you
what
said,
I used to do. That's
yeah,
how I
yeah,
used to
yeah, yeah,
live. Just keep pushing through.
right.
Yeah.
And see, that's what shifts. It's like you discern something, like what creation really is and feels like. More accurately stated, you discern what creating what I want feels like,
Yeah.
compared to the feeling of creating what I do not want. There's a difference in the feeling.
Mm.
You're always creating, always creating, always, right? And when you start to feel the difference between creating my true desire, creating what I really want, as discerned from creating what I do not want, then that's all you need to know. Now you can move about within that. And so, yeah, the minute you could feel a shifting, my focus accidentally shifts somewhere else. Well, if you don't pick up on it, this is what Abraham says. Well, if you don't pick up on it, don't worry, it'll get worse, right? Don't worry, it'll get worse,
Yeah.
right? So your focus shifted a little, and it went to sort of like whatever it was, which started to feel antsy and irritated and not, but it wasn't flowing. Well, now you have such what is it? Such a mastery about what the feeling of that is, that you just do. It's like, oh, well, can you teach me to do? Can you tell me what to do? Not really. because because anything you do won't work for me, because what you're doing it's inspired from your knowing, is really what it is. So
Mhm.
what it is you can only point me to knowing. It's the most
Mhm.
help, right? Is if you can point me to knowing, so that I can feel it in the same mastery level the way you did, right? then it's like, then people are off and running. Then they will always know what to do. See, most people, and this is where if you over rotate on the doing, right? Most people, right, will say, come on, you got to stop procrastinating. Your trouble is you're not doing, right? Like you need to get an action, you need a system, you need a process, right? So to overcome this procrastination, so you can get back in action. So then what they do is from the fixation on doing, right, they will then set up a system and block their calendars and make sure they sit up and make sure there's no distractions and do all that and put on headphones, do it. And then they've solved the problem through discipline and willpower to try to use action, to create, but your action creates nothing, right? So all creation happens from that source energy. It's the vibration that creates everything. It is that formless energy that is the creator of everything. And it expresses through you as action, but your action is a creation or a manifestation of that energy.
Yeah, really.
So
good.
you were in a place, so we could call what you did is a greater level of mastery than someone who would have reacted to their sense of procrastination. So someone who would have reacted to that and set up a willpower system or discipline to go is different, because they would be reacting from a lot of resistance. And by the way, their product at the end will be infused by the energy that created it. Yes. So the energy that created that book will be infused by the energy at its source. So that resistant, turbulent, disharmonious energy is what's all over that book as they write it, right? So you, from a sense of mastery, from a realization of that's a total waste of time, and I don't want a book like that, right? So you're feeling your way to the feeling where the book is pure, where the writing is pure, where it happens. That's the book that I want, not this book. It's that book that I want. And so that's mastery. Whereas people would say, no, you were lazy. You're a procrastinator. And, you just needed better systems, right? And it's like, not at all. That's not at all.
Yeah. Well, there are some teachers, very popular, very, very big names, that I see them on Instagram. It's a particular woman. I do like a lot of the things that she says, but she's really about forcing action.
Everyone will teach from what they see. Everyone will teach from how the reality looks to them. I don't even know who it is, but I know that they would be well-intentioned and, good-hearted. And so they're just teaching from the reality that they see. That's why we resonate with some teachers and do not resonate with other teachers. And even over the course of our own growth or expansion in our own consciousness, is that we move to new teachers sometimes. One of the most interesting quotes that I heard Abraham, it shocked me when I first heard it, was, "We are not your first teacher. We will not be your last teacher." And when I heard them say that, I was like shocked. I'm like, what are you talking about? You are pure source energy consciousness. It's infinite intelligence. What do you mean that this would not be the last teacher? Here's what I've since sort of realized about it. It's not that they're not telling the truth that their teaching isn't of an infinite intelligence. What it is their the way they point to this intelligence and this source, the way they point to it will fit with some people. They'll follow that pointing beyond the teaching to the actual point of the teaching, right? So And there comes a point where sometimes you need different pointing. In other words, it's like a little bit like your inner being kind of goes, oh man, you're really not getting this. And of course your inner being doesn't. I'm just being funny. but it's sort of like you're listening to Abraham. They keep pointing you to pure truth. All you hear are practices and techniques and tips, and you run off doing all these little affirmations and vision boards and doing all this other stuff. It's like, boy, you're missing the point. And so then they shift you over. They make attractive to you a different teaching that points to the same thing in a different way so that you can actually hear it, right? Because you're not hearing it over here.
And
right?
when you're saying they, who are you referring to, just for clarity? Abraham, your inner being,
your own inner being. I use the plural in the same way that Abraham uses a plural in reference to themselves. It is a consciousness, but not a personality or a person. So it is all that is. It is your broader perspective. It is the more intelligent version of you. The broader version of you eventually notices that the little version of you is so spinning their wheels that they say, hey, look over here. Look over here. Cut it out with that. That thing, you're not getting it. It's like, look over here. Over here, it'll be easier for you to get it, right? And shifts you over to somewhere else. But here's the other thing, though. Never make that other thing wrong. In other words, oh, you know what I discovered? I discovered the truth in this other teaching. Abraham was wrong, right? It's like, that is nonsense. That only speaks to your misunderstanding of what they said, right? Your misunderstanding of that spiritual teacher is all that's pointing to, right? It is not pointing to whether or not, they were, in a pointing to a pure truth. You certainly didn't hear it in the way they were pointing, but that doesn't.
Well, I mean, if it doesn't resonate with you and you're feeling like that is not a pure truth that they're saying,
you move off of it.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, it's not like we're not saying like Abraham Hicks is the end all be all and you should follow everything they say. No, I know you're not saying you want to follow.
You move off it. You move off it and you go to where it's easy. Yeah, what I mean is I watch so many people who will move from, oh, I used to follow this, but that's wrong. And now I follow this. And I used to listen to that speaker or that teacher, but now I know that that's wrong and I follow this. It's like, well, it certainly was wrong in the way you understood it. So it's a good thing you left. And it's a good thing you went somewhere else because your understanding of that was not helping you because the way you understood it did not point you to truth. So in that regard, what you left is a misunderstanding of a teaching, but do not confuse that with the teaching is wrong.
Well, there's got to be some teachings that are wrong or not correct or
perhaps if there is a consciousness which is all that is, which infinitely moves in every direction, and you are pointing in it, you are pointing to the all that is. When you point that way, is it wrong? When you point to all that is that way, is it wrong? And when you have another teacher who points to all that is this way, are they in contradiction to you? Are they? So that's the question. Or is it you can't hear what they're pointing to? And from your unique perspective, when you hear this pointing is not helpful for you. It only creates a resistance in you. It only creates a misunderstanding in you. So, but are they wrong? Can any of that be wrong? Can you be misguided? Can you be misguided as consciousness within all that is? Can you move in a wrong direction ever in the discovery of more of all that you are? Is there a wrong direction to move? Is there a wrong exploration?
Yes, good point.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there are no
But
mistakes. Yeah.
but don't frustrate yourself. Don't sit kind of going, I know nothing's wrong and I know I should and I know I should understand it. It's like, you don't have time for that. You're only here for 100 years as far as physical life. You don't have time to understand all these spiritual teachings. Go with the one that is resonating for you, because from this unique perspective in this lifetime, the unique perspective you bring forward, there are some that will expand the consciousness that is you, and you will feel the resonance of those and leave behind all the others. But here's why I said that other part without making them wrong. Because when you make them wrong, you're stuck with them. When you make them wrong, you are not leaving them and following this. What you are doing is stuck with what's wrong with them. Do you see? So you are stuck in a vibration of what is wrong. It's sort of like, what are you doing? We're over here with the truth. Like, your source energy consciousness is calling you here. Yeah, I know. But before I come, I want to point out all the errors on this one. Like, you're wasting your life. You're wasting
That's like
your
sort of like
life.
what I just did, telling you about that woman. But it was a question because of the mass appeal of what she's teaching. It's just like, ooh, that's a lot of
What,
people that are following something that's quote unquote wrong. Yeah.
well, and this, but notice the appeal, right? Which tells you something about where is the mass consciousness.
Right.
If you were to tune into more of a mass consciousness and watch the news and stay on top of it and talk to the people who are most popular and make sure you're listening to everything, well, wouldn't maybe what she's saying will make a lot of sense,
Right.
given the reality that you're tuned to. It'll make sense from that reality. It might lift you. It might lift you a bit out of that reality. Maybe it might lift you out of it. However, to your point though, that cannot be the end of it, because there's an effort in there which to you and I indicates a resistance within it that cannot possibly be helpful eventually, right? So eventually you've got to see more. You've got to expand your consciousness. Eventually you've got to leave that resistance behind. And she may be a great teacher, and the teaching may be wonderful for that step.
Yes.
Right. Yeah.
Thank you for that. That is really helpful. Yeah. There's nothing wrong there. Yeah.
Don't you love that about Abraham, by the way? No matter, that is the one thing about Abraham that I've never seen any other sort of with such purity and solidness, is the nothing is wrong, no one is wrong, it is all allowed. It is all allowed, it is all appreciated, it is all included. I watch because I watch all the Abraham Nows, I'm on all the live streams, all the workshop, right? But question after question after question after question, and so many people tempt with the questions. They're like, Abraham, my sister-in-law says, and Abraham, I was, this politician is saying this, and and then they're trying to stop us in the schools from doing this or this. And never does Abraham say, yeah, you're right, they are wrong. And so it's like, and I'm waiting for it, right? I'm waiting for it because I hear the question and I kind of go, oh, she's right. That person is right about that. I agree with her, right? I agree with her. And then Abraham comes in and they will not make anything wrong. They're like, there's no right or wrong in action. It's like what they're knowing is the action is not the point, and the action is not creating, and the action and even discussion about the action and stopping the action and changing the action and stopping those people from acting in the way that they're acting is sort of like you're missing the point. It's like missing the source of the action. And so you're wasting your time.
And just taking that into your own life on a personal level, that is probably the biggest thing that transformed my life, is not trying to change other people, in my close proximity, like letting people be. That's like the biggest freedom.
Oh, the freedom, isn't it?
Yeah.
You're right.
Well, wonderful, Dominic. This has been really a great conversation. Of course, I knew that it would be. And I want to give you an opportunity to let people know how to find you, what you do, what kind of work you do, anything you want to say, your website, all of it.
Yeah. Website's probably the easiest thing. So it's my name, DominicScaffidi.com. And so when you get there, there are links to all kinds of free resources and talks that I do. Like I do webinars and talks on these topics. You can tell in this conversation by listening, I'm a complete geek, very technical, precise articulation of what these things are. And that's kind of, you'll hear more of that in all of these on various topics and that kind of thing. What I am professionally is I'm an executive coach. And I'm a master certified coach with the International Coach Federation. So as a professional coach, I work with people also on a one-to-one basis. And so there's information about that on my website. And then I also, through my website, offer some small group coaching kinds of programs and large group coaching programs. So those are ways of working with me. And yeah, and then there's a YouTube channel, all that's linked there. And my YouTube channel also contains lots of these kinds of talks and things. So yeah.
Wonderful. Well, I've heard about you for a while, and this is the first time we really got to connect. So thank you so much. I love, love, love this conversation.
Yeah. Thank you, Rhonda. It's been a pleasure getting to know you better through this also.
I hope you enjoyed this episode with Dominic Scaffidi. You can find Dominic on his website at dominicscaffidi.com. There you will find many free resources, trainings, and videos. All his links are in the show notes, including the link to his Facebook group, Ask and It Is Given, How Thoughts Become Things, and Dominic's YouTube channel, where you will find even more fabulous content. If you enjoy this podcast and would like to support the show, click on the Support the Show link in the show notes, or simply go to paypal.me/delicious-alignment. I greatly appreciate your wonderful emails, notes, and contributions cheering me on. It means the world to me and helps to keep this show on the air. Another way you can help support us is by telling your friends about Delicious Alignment Podcast. Just grab the link, deliciouSalignment.com/podcast, text a few friends, post about this show on social, and let's share this resource with people interested in raising their vibes even higher on all topics. Have a delicious day. Talk to you next time when our guest is Reed Thompson, who shares his 12 months of fun experiment with us.